another time with VOL2IO, the enthusiastic tutor. And in today's tutorial, it happens to be the second tutorial we're having on the course, POL123. And today, we're going to be talking about the approaches in public administration. So, we're going to be talking about different approaches, starting with we have the philosophical approach. Now, the philosophical approach to public administration is said to be the oldest approach. The oldest approach. Now, let's talk about this approach. Let's talk about its origin. Just a moment. Let's talk about its origin and where it emanated from. And okay, sorry about that. Just a moment. I think I muted something here. So now we have the philosophical approach. This approach is related or tied to the work of Plato. Now, Plato's Republic Hobbes, all right, with his Leviathan book, Locke, treatises on civil government are examples of this approach. All right, the work of Plato's Hobbes and John Locke are related or tied to the philosophical approach. Basically, nothing much on this, but just know that this philosophical approach to public admin is tied to the work of the likes of Plato's, Hobbes, John Locke, all right, about civil government. So we have that as that. We also have the structural approach, and the structural approach has to do with the study of public administration in terms of its structure. All right, it has to do with the study of public administration in terms of what its structure. Now here it emphasizes the study of what we call post-corp technique of administration. That is a structural approach. Now we also have the historical approach. Speaking of the historical approach, it seeks to what? Recreate a chapter of history. Okay, looking at the approach from the history, talking about public admin, scrutinizing its history and how we can take ideas from the history and how it emanated and how it can be applied in the contemporary administration. Now, it seeks to recreate a chapter of history as it attempts to study the public administration of the past within a particular period and interpret the organization and information on chronological order, just like I said, bringing the past to the future and making sense out of it. So we have that as that. Now, I said something before now about post-corp under the structural approach. Post-corp is an acronym, all right, and this acronym stands for, each alphabet of post-corp stands for a word. Now, post-corp is spelled POSDCRB. So now all this alphabet has or stands for a particular word. Now let's take it up from P. P in post-corp stands for planning. We have O in post-corp stands for organizing. We have S stands for staffing. We have D, directing. C, coordinating. R, reporting. B, budgeting. Let's do that again. P, planning. O, organizing. S, staffing. D, directing. C, coordinating. R, reporting. B, budgeting. So we have that as that. Now, speaking of planning, it is said to be the first most important activity of public administration. The first most important activity of public administration. And speaking of which, it is said to be working out in broad outline the things that need to be done, specifying in broad light the things that need to be done. broad outline, underline broad outline, the things that need to be done. Okay, and we have organizing. Organizing sets B, setting out of what we call formal structure of authority and flow of work. Organizing is said to be setting out of the formal structure. When you set out the formal structure of authority and flow of work, that means you are organizing. So we have staffing. It says here that after creating a formal structure of an organization, you have to put in place suitable, all right, not just anybody, but suitable persons, all right, appoint suitable person into the various posts of the organization. So we have directing. This is the continuous, it's not a one-time thing. It is said to be a continuous task of making decisions, embodying them in specific and general instructions, and getting what the pace and setting the pace. Now, directing has to be deals with a continuous task of what making decisions, and these decisions are embodied in what we call, all right, these decisions that you make continuously are embodied in specific or general instructions and setting the pace. Why do you have to do all this? Because the organization has to make profit. That is the bottom line of everything. Make profit. Every organization does want to make profit. All right. Also, we have coordinating, said to be when you what the feature borders on interrelating various parts of work. All right, coordinating when you interrelate different parts of the organization. All right, everybody has to work together, bring everybody together to work together to achieve just one goal, which is the goal of the organization. By doing this, you have eliminated conflicts different in different levels, because everybody now have to work together, and this is done and achieved through coordinating. And we have reporting which has to do with keeping both the supervisors and subordinates informed of what is going on, and arranging for the collection of such information through inspection, research, and record. Now, reporting is not just a one-way thing, it is a two-way thing. When information is being reported, all right, when information is being gathered by supervisors or by managers, it is taken up. Don't forget that these informations are maybe complaints, like where I'm coming from. While I was still working in the hospitality industry, all right, like our hostels, what they do, for every, when I say hospitality industry, I once worked at Cappadocia restaurant, the only cave restaurant in the whole of West Africa. All right, it's one of its kind, just two branches, one in Lagos and one in Abuja here. It's pure cave. It's not as if I'm doing marketing for them, but it's what it is. It's a very wonderful place. All right, so we have our hostels, and what they do is they get information from our customers. All right, they want to know what was the service like? Did you enjoy the service? What are the loopholes? What do you think? All right. These informations, do well to follow us on our Instagram page. If you don't want to talk to us, you can drop us a review. We appreciate it. Now, these informations also, we the wait staff also give what we call what do we even call them? It's more like a questionnaire, but yeah, we call them feedback form. Now, this feedback form, customers are persuaded. Not everybody uses anyway, but customers are persuaded by their wait staff to fill in the form. And what is it all about? What's the service like? So some of these feedback form are confidential. All right, you don't get to open them until the guest leaves, and informations here are being gathered, then worked upon by the manager. If it's there's need for the information to be escalated, it is escalated, all right, and instructions comes back, and these instructions then it's being distributed by the manager to every affected department. If it's the floor house, it calls everybody together. If it's the financial department, I worked at the financial department anyway. It has in charge of their finances. If it's the financial department, maybe it's a report from the customer directed towards the financial department. It calls us together. I think we are just two of us who work one day in, one day out there, and it talks to us. You got now look at the flow of information. Information is being gathered, worked upon, then redisseminated. That's what reporting has to do. All right. So it's not just the supervisors giving information to the directors or to the managers and it stops there. No. So that's how it works. And we also have budgeting, which is a particular function in the hallmark of the administrator. Position since finance, all right. Budgeting has to do with finance. Permit me to catch my breath. Budgeting has to do with finance. Definitely, every business requires finance to sustain its activities. So we have that as that. Please permit me to grab a bottle of water. I'm so dehydrated right now. Excuse me, please. Okay. Oh my god. Okay. Okay. Sorry, excuse me for that. I just had 3 classes back to back. Several hours of preparing for these classes. So sorry. I just can't hold it anymore. I just had to request for this quick break just to catch my breath and have some water. Now let's get back to it. Now we have public administration as an art. Let's look at public administration as an art. What does it mean by that? Now, public administration as an art is an all right, it's said to be around since ancient time. Public administration as an art is said to be around since ancient times. Public administration is very closely related to the study of political science. All right. So history here is concerned with the study. Oh my goodness. Okay. I think we see how he should be able to sustain us. My phone just dropped down to 5%. As you can see, there is no right. We're having issues with our energy supply. And whenever it rains, things like this happens. And that's why you are seeing us doing this. That's why I'm not using the whiteboard. This is connected to my system, and my system is even going to shut down any moment from now. But just like I always say, no matter what it is, we just have to do something. We can't rely on our shortcomings. We just have to get on and do something. So let's see what we can do before the whole thing goes. All right. So now we have history is concerned with the study of social progress of mankind. Every mankind has thought done and achieved. Now, it is a study of past events, movements, cases, and interrelations. History is laboratory of human experience. History gives us to analyze experience. And now, what are we saying in essence? Public administration as an art. So we're talking about the human part, all right, the human existence or the human part, the human involvement or the human activities that that gives him sense of purpose, thought, and how to achieve his purpose. So we have here that it says here about as an art also talks about history, looking at the 18th and the 19th century. Public administration refused to be influenced by psychology during this era because it regarded itself as a perfect science. During the 18th and the 19th century, speaking about the art now, it refused to be seen as influenced by psychology because public administration sees itself as a perfect um, science. So we have that as that. Now let's talk about human behavior, which is said to be is not as perfectly rational as public administration thought it to be. An administrator has got to be a psychologist. An administrator has got to be a psychologist as well, otherwise it will prove a flop. As an administrator, you're expected to be a psychologist. You need to always think, all right, understand, study, observe. If not, you prove a flop according to what we have here. So we have that as that. Now let's take a step further. Okay. Now let's see some violations of administration. Some violations of administrative responsibility in Nigeria. We have the likes of bribery and corruption. All right, we have the likes of dishonesty. And bribery and corruption is said to be the worst act against administrative responsibility in Nigeria. We have dishonesty, we have unethical behavior that negates administrative responsibilities. We have acting without legal authority. So we have unfair treatment of workers. So we have that as that. Now let's take a step further. Now there's something called parliamentary form of executive, all right, or the parliamentary type of executive. In the parliamentary form, executive power lie with the what? Prime Minister. In the parliamentary type of executive, the executive power lie with the Prime Minister. Here we have presidential type. Here, president of the country is vested with all executive power, unlike the parliamentary type of executive. Okay, so we have that. The United States of America and Nigeria represent the best example of the presidential type of executive. Now, speaking of administrative policy, according to Gladden, administrative policy is said to be the form in which the ministerial administrator or board carries the will of the government into effect. Let's say that again. Administrative policy, according to Gladden, the form in which the ministerial administrators or board carries the will of the government into effect. So we have that as that. Now let's take a step further. I really want us to call it a wrap with the course today, so that by next week we are starting a new course entirely, because I realize that for this department we still have a long way to go. Now let's talk about Wood. Okay, let's talk about Wood Wilson essay on the study of administration that was published in 1887. All right, Wood Wilson wrote his essay on the study of public administration, published in 1887. Now we have that as that. Now let's take this point. The civil service of the Federation is organized into 37 civil services, including the state civil service. Let's take that point. Okay. The horizontal structuring of the civil service into classes. All right. We have the administrative, secretary. We have the administrative, the executive, secretariat, clerical, and professional. That is the horizontal structuring of civil service into classes: administrative, executive, structural, clerical, and professional. So we have that as that. Now let's take a step further. Now let's take this point. It says Nigerian became a social welfare state after the inauguration of the independent constitution in 1960. Adebo Commission on the Review of the Salary Structure. Now, these are series of reviews written in Nigeria Administrative Organization, all right, in the Nigerian administrative structure. Now we have the review of Adebo Commission on Salary Structure of Civil Service in 1971. Also, the Udoji Commission in 1974. We have Dotun Phillips Study Group on Civil Service in 1965. We have Babangida Civil Service Reform in 1988. We have the Abacha Civil Service Reform in 1997. All right, and we have a point here on a minister. It's said to be a minister is responsible for all that goes on within his department. Okay, that's we have a minister has the power to what? Direct, control, and supervise. So we have the start. Let's take a step. So we have the start. Now let's take this point. Now it says here that administrative machine is hierarchical in structure. Okay, administrative machine is hierarchical in structure. The hierarchical structure of administration provides for what we call clear line of responsibility. Everybody respects his or her line of responsibility, and responsibility and accountability are imposed without authority, the power to control. Okay, effective, efficient survey of the work of an administrative unit is another effective method too. Okay, so we have that. So we have M and O. It's an abbreviation for organization and method. Okay, so we have that is that. Now let's take a step further. Now we have something on planning. Planning is said to be a rational process, characteristics of all human behavior. Planning is deciding in advance what is to be done. All right, and we have overall planning, which may be termed as social economic planning. It deals with planning of natural resources, objectives, and activities of the society. As well, we have the limited planning. Here, planning does not centralize all socio-economic activities at one focal point. Okay, it's limited. So we have administrative planning, which has to do with administrative programs. Planning mainly about administrative programs. So we have that as that. Also, we have something on coordination. It is therefore the synchronization of efforts. When you synchronize efforts for a common purpose, okay, then you are coordinating. We have the type of coordination, internal or functional. All right, we have the types of coordination. It can be of two types. So we have the internal coordination or functional coordination, and we have the external or structural coordination. So we have that as that. And also we have here communication, which is said to be a two-way traffic. I've been noticing that in everything that has to do with maybe a management or public administration, any course in particular, there must be communication in it. It's like it's very important something. Highly very important anyway, because communication is key in an organization. It's very, very important. Now, communication here means the interchange of thoughts, partaking of ideas, and a sense of participation and sharing. All right, communication. And we have types of communication. Don't forget, it's a two-way thing. You have to give and receive. All right, you have to give communication, you have to send a message, and receiver has to receive. So it's not a one-way thing, it's a two-way thing actually. Okay, so we have that, and we have the types of communication. We have the internal, external, and interpersonal communication. I think on this we'll call it a wrap here today. So thank you very much, everyone. Please let's do well to keep our notes up to date and submit to the appropriate quarters. I look forward to seeing all in subsequent tutorial. To have a wonderful night rest. Bye bye.